Okay.
Oh, it's being recorded. Great. Okay, it looks like we've just started the webcast. It looks like we already have 119 property managers in attendance. I know there were about 450 managers registered, so maybe we'll just wait 30 to 45 more seconds for more property managers to stream in, and then I will kick off the webcast. And again, we like to make all these webcasts super engaging. So if you are in attendance and you have a great question, certainly feel free to reach out in the Q&A and we'll try to answer your questions. And it's nice to see so many familiar faces or slash names in attendance. So hi, Ada, hi, Albana, just going down the list. Hi, Neela, just going down the A's. Oh, there's just so many. Hi, Lenore. We're gonna give it 30 more seconds and then we'll kick it off. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to make it in. Okay. There's a hand wave from Albana. A lot of familiar names. So we're at over 200 registrants now. So hopefully everyone else will be able to stream in shortly, and we'll just kick it off with some of the admin stuff. So welcome everyone to today's webcast or webinar. Hey Siri, manage my condo. That's a question mark. And the subtitle is Smarter Tech, Bigger Questions. And as always, our webinars are CPE certified. So if you are a general license manager in Ontario, you will receive a certificate of completion after this webinar, and you'll be able to upload that into the CMRAO website and claim your 1.0 CPE credit. We'll be sending that certificate in the afternoon, so not right after this webcast, but in the afternoon. So look out in your email for that. So without further ado, I'll just jump into introductions. So our first guest is Michelle Joy. She is the Vice President of Operations for Wilson Blanchard's Niagara region. And for those of you who don't know, Wilson Blanchard is one of the largest and most respected condominium management firms in Ontario. I actually first met Michelle in 2020. That was in the middle of the pandemic or near the beginning of the pandemic when we at Condonexus were trying to help condos safely transition to virtual AGMs. And it was during that time, Michelle and I, we just kept crossing paths in meetings. And because we always saw each other in meetings, I think I actually spoke with Michelle more than I spoke with my own parents during that time. And what stood out then, and it still stands out today, is that Michelle, she is so genuinely passionate about building strong condo communities. And she is just so committed to mentoring future leaders. So, whether she is on industry panels or teaching at Humber, or giving back in just so many countless ways, Michelle is always contributing, always leading, and always lifting others up. So we are delighted to have Michelle on this webinar. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm going to need you to introduce me everywhere from here on out.
No worries. Perfect. So our second guest is Deborah Howden, partner at Shibley Righton LLP. And when I think of leading condominium lawyers in Ontario, Deborah and her colleague, Armand Kanan, are always at the top of the list in my mind. And it's not just because Shibley is one of the largest condo law practices in the province. And Melissa raised her hand because she agrees. But not only because they're one of the largest law practices, condo law practices in Ontario, but because they also happen to be the lawyers at the condo where I served as a director for 17 years. And I met Deborah back in 2010 while serving as a director. We were dealing at the condo with a frivolous resident claim that our previous lawyer was unable to de-escalate. And after bringing in Deborah and Armand, the issue was resolved in weeks. And that's when I realized how much of a difference the right counsel can make for a condo. So beyond her legal work, Deborah is a pillar of the condo community and of the industry. And she is also a regular conference speaker a contributor to publications and media, and a trusted voice on complex condo issues. So welcome, Deborah, to the webinar.
Wow, thank you very much. And thank you for that generous introduction. And good morning, everybody. Happy to be here.
No worries. And I don't think either of those introductions are generous. I think they were right sized for the amount of value you've both provided to the industry. And I'll give a quick introduction about myself. Many of you might know, my name is Anthony Ng. I'm co-founder of Condonexus. And as some of you know, Condonexus is a digital proxy voting, electronic ballot budget delivery, and virtual and hybrid AGM solution for condos across Ontario. So we're currently trusted by about 1,300, a bit over 1,300 condos, which is approximately 1 in 10 condos in Ontario. And as mentioned in CPE webinars, an important part of our company's mission is to help managers be productive at work and to help managers look brilliant before your boards. And that's why we hold these CPE webinars, to ensure that everyone is educated on relevant topics of the day. So we will kick off today's webinar, and I'm going to share a video from a new property management firm in Ontario. This is maybe less so of an introduction or a promotion, and I just wanted to share this interesting property management video from a new PM. Mark Cuban, as you guys may know, has started a property management firm in Ontario.
All right, day one as property manager. Let's handle this kindly. Dear resident, it has come to my attention that your dog has been using the rose bush near the front walkway as a bathroom. While accidents happen, we kindly ask that you clean up after your pet for the sake of your neighbors and the health of the plant.
So that, as many of you might know, was not a real video. That was not, Mark Cuban is not actually taking time away from his multi-million-dollar companies and managing a property management company in Ontario. That was a video generated with AI. And all it takes nowadays is a few prompts, and you can generate a video like that. AI, it's just wild. There's been trillions of dollars, over $1 trillion, maybe not trillions yet, but in the next couple of years, there will be trillions of dollars invested into AI infrastructure in North America. Currently, already there's more money invested in AI data centers, GPU chips, etc., than the amount invested in the entire US interstate highway system over 40 years, and that's inflation adjusted as well. So AI is definitely having its iPhone moment. People are intrigued. People are using it more. People are wondering what is going to be the next big use case for AI. So we will just dive right in. And the big scary question that I get asked all the time is, will AI replace property managers? And maybe I'll start with you, Michelle, from your experience in the field. What's your take on that question?
So, immediate answer, no. Now, I want to preface everything I say today by saying I'm a property manager and by no means a tech expert. So everything I'm going to talk about is my experience in this industry. But at this point in time, my thought is no. AI is not at the level where it can be replacing property managers. Many, many, many years, decades in the future, who knows, but there's a lot of different facets of our job that we do that AI simply cannot do. One of the easiest ones to say, although there are the self-driving cars in certain, places in North America, site inspections, going around, looking at your building, your eyes on what's going on, using your knowledge to assess the property, making those human connections, whether you're an on-site manager or a portfolio manager, making those human connections. I've done very limited on-site management, but I know one of the biggest things about on-site management is you're there in the building, you have your residents that always come to visit you, you're building those person-to-person relationships. And where our society is at today, people want people. They don't want to go to the AI chat robot sitting in your office to try and have a conversation. I think we've all we've all had our share of frustrating moments, whether you're using a phone automation system or you're, using the customer service chat on any of the products or services websites that you work with. It's not perfect at this point. What I will say though, is that I think AI can be a great tool to help us property managers. And I know it's new, which is why we probably have so many attendees for this webinar. I think for some it's a bit scary. And I myself, for the longest time, almost forgot to use it. I mean, I say forget, but I'd be talking with my colleagues and I'd be like, guys, oh my God, I need this, and I'm struggling with that. And they're like, Michelle, AI. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? So it's a great, I think in my opinion right now, it's a great efficiency tool. All the property managers on the call right now, I'm sure know all the things that we are tasked with handling on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And so in my opinion, anything that we can do to make our jobs and our lives a little bit more efficient. Because I think Deborah and I, maybe Anthony as you, as part of our pre-chat, we also talked a little about personal implication or implementation of it. And I, happy to share some of that as well. But anything we can do to make our jobs more efficient, to be able to handle all the tasks that are thrown at us, I'm all for it. But at this point in time, no, AI is not replacing us, but I think it can be a friendly tool, for you to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deborah, love to hear your perspective as well on that.
Well, before I share my perspective, let me just say I'm glad that the question isn't, is AI going to replace lawyers at some point? That's a scarier proposition for me. But everything that Michelle said, I certainly can't disagree with. I think it's bang on. The aspect of AI that is missing in relation to property managers and perhaps other industries associated with condo is the human skills. That remains irreplaceable. Relationship management. So there's a large part of property management that relates to conflict resolution, and AI can't really replicate the human sense of ethical sensitivities, genuine compassion, right? It can't do that right now. It mimics it. It will say, sorry to hear that if you're using Chat GPT and you tell it about a problem. But in terms of solving ethical problems and having that human touch, it's not there. It reminds me of that old quote that says, honesty is everything. If you can fake that, you can fake anything and you've got it made. But of course, the basis of honesty is you got to be honest and true. So AI, it doesn't have that human touch, which is so indispensable to property management. And I agree with Michelle that the future for management is hybrid, meaning AI will routinely handle some tasks that you normally perform. There's no question about that. Your future is not going to be AI absent. You will have AI in your future, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But rather than replacing you, that's going to free you to focus on high value roles like community building, crisis management, financial planning, all those big things that are a part of your role. So your future is certainly going to involve AI, but I don't see you being replaced at this stage, which is good news.
I think I saw a good a comment come up in the Q&A to kind of jump on it, and this isn't meant as like a scary thing to say at all, but I think where I see the starting point of AI is a lot of what we do administratively, but I still don't think when we look at property management operations as a whole, right? We've got our accounting team that we work with. We've got our administrative team. We've got our property managers who, the licensed managers out there. And I certainly don't think that AI is going to replace administrators as well, because again, not a tech expert, but I don't think AI is strong enough that you can 100% rely on it. At this point, I totally encourage my team to, and we're going to talk about safe use of AI. But I always tell them you have to double check it. But I think where it comes into play, and I'm going to put my business hat on here, is maximizing efficiency for companies, right? If you can do things more efficiency, you can increase your operations, and I see that as a benefit. So I think the stepping stone of where I see AI right now is really taking the load off of those back-end administrative stuff. We're going to talk about all the ways you can use it, or at least the ways that I'm aware of that you can use it. But I don't think that we're in a place where administrators are going to be losing their jobs either. So I don't want to come out and be like, administrators are going to be replaced by AI. I don't want that to be what comes across here. But again, I think it trickles down into that aspect as well, that it's not just managers who can be using it, but you know, other team members within our company.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like it is a tool. It certainly will be a tool and is currently a tool that makes property managers more efficient. And like the reality is, like, I don't think I know a single property manager that doesn't work overtime in a given week. Like, try to find a property manager that works just 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Good luck. You know, if AI can make property managers 20% more efficient, 30% more efficient, we're probably just going back to, like, you know, a reasonable work week. So it's hard to replace property managers. And Deborah brought up conflict resolution, and that is such a huge thing that property managers have to deal with. There was a comment on LinkedIn that I saw from one of our clients, Gritza from ICC, and she wrote, most problems in condo management are not technical, they are emotional. Residents usually want two things. They want to feel heard and they want to feel respected. And the reality is, like, we've all used AI. We've chatted with chatbots. We've chatted with those IVR telephone trees where they say, tell me what you'd like to talk about. And you just end up shouting customer service because you want to talk to a human. You don't believe that AI or a robot is going to give you the best solution. So I feel like it is really hard to replace the human element of things. But AI will certainly add a lot of efficiencies to the job, and that will hopefully make the job a more enjoyable, let's say, at the very least. So with that, I will segue into our favorite current AI use cases. That's the next topic on our agenda. So let's see what AI is actually doing today. I guess maybe Michelle, do you want to start? Do you want to maybe share something that genuinely saves you time, reduces headaches, or like maybe improves the resident experience, and any of your favorite current AI use cases?
Yeah, no problem. So I would say, I mean, the biggest thing that I'm most definitely using it for, and I've seen a couple comments in our chat there, definitely, again, administration and communication. We have a fantastic administration team. And of course, if I say, like, unit 101 needs a letter about picking up their dog poop, we've got 100 letters on those, right? We've got 100 letters. I don't need to tell the admin team in my office how to write a dog poop letter. But there are some more nuanced situations that we're dealing with. We talked about, we deal with emotional problems. The issues we're dealing with are becoming a little more complex. And so I find when I really kind of have to get a little more into like a nitty-gritty type conversation, I use AI. I kind of tell it what I want. And I say, like, give me a letter to an owner, or give me a notice, whatever, or maybe it's an email, right? And so it generates it for me. So what I worry about a little bit with that, and this I heard on a podcast that was talking about AI as well. With years of experience, I'm not saying I'm a perfect property manager, but I've had a lot of time to learn. I've had a lot of time to experience, go through things, face the challenges, and learn. My team at the office, sometimes they'll say, like, I have this problem, and I'll kind of quickly draft up, give them an idea of what to say. Not using it, I just go, okay, this is how I would respond to this owner, and they joke and they call me the human chat GPT sometimes. But as we all know, sitting here, and Deborah, same thing. When you were a junior lawyer, I'm sure when you were doing all your all the stuff you have to write, letters and cases and all that stuff, you had to learn how to say things. And as you gain that experience, you're like, oh, I've done this a million times, I can just kind of spit out the general response that I want to say. And I've learned what not to say and what gets a good reaction, or how to de-escalate a situation. So I think it's a great tool to, as someone who I know what I want to say, I can kind of spit the general content into the AI bot and say, give me a letter. What I don't want to happen, and this is what I heard on this podcast that was talking a bit about AI, is because it can just give you information so freely and it can do the task often that you're asking it to do, you're breaking down the process of learning and gaining the knowledge by experience. And anybody who's been, I'm in leadership, I do a lot of training of new staff that come on. And in the beginning, you're training, right? Yep. Okay. This is how we do this process. This is how we would handle that. And then after they have a little bit of time to adapt, they come to me and they go, Michelle, I have this issue. What do I do? And I turn around and go, what do you think you should do in this situation, right? Because if I just always tell somebody what to do, they never have to think for themselves and get to that end result, right? And so my fear is that I hope people are still kind of getting the opportunity to learn, and AI isn't taking that ability away. So that was kind of a tangent from how I'm using it, but I think it is very important that people are still having the opportunity to challenge themselves and gain that knowledge and that experience outside of the AI universe, because I think it's a very important way of how we learn, throughout our life. So yeah, but big thing for me, I'm using it for letters. I'm using it for newsletters. I'm using it when, everybody will laugh at this one, but, I've written a email to someone who I, want to tell off. And, I want to say, like, please never email me again. And then I asked ChatGPT, how do I say this in a professional manner, right? When your brain is just in angry mode and, you probably shouldn't be sending that email, but I sometimes ask it, can you make this sound a little nicer? Or the great thing about it is it can, it'll give you a letter, right? It gives you a nice little letter to send to an owner, but it's a little too fluffy. I need this to be a little bit more stern. This is a second warning letter. I need this to have a stronger tone to it. And it's amazing. It'll completely adjust it for you. So I think the biggest thing, I think a lot of people are probably using it on like the base level, is administrative tasks, right? Put this notice together, put this letter together, all of that. Again, I go back to, it's a great tool, but you need to proofread it because you need to make sure that what it's saying is correct. My other thing is, and anybody who's a frequent user of AI, I'm sure that when someone sends you an AI generated communication, you can pick up immediately the long dashes, the randomly bolded words. I instantly know that this person has not written this, AI has written it. So I format it so that, respectfully as a, VP of operations, I don't want to be emailing every client and then being like, oh, Michelle's writing me on behalf of AI, right? So you really need to put a personal touch on it still, because frequent users of AI can call you out and know that you're using AI. The other thing is that, yes, we want to use it, we want to use it to allow us to, maybe sound more professional in communication, but make sure it sounds like you at the same time. People can pick up on it. Like if I've been working with someone for a length of time and then all of a sudden I get this correspondence, I'm like, one is not like the other. There's some other great uses. I don't know if anybody's using it, analyzing quotes, analyzing reports. So, and again, we're going to talk about safety of it, because you definitely want to be safe, but there's ways that you can upload your quotes. Hey, can you prepare a quote summary for these landscaping maintenance contracts? Hey, here's an engineering report. Maybe it's very technical. I think most of our engineers are good at putting it in layman's terms, but maybe you've got something really technical. Can you kind of just bring this down to my level and explain it to me? Or maybe it's a 60-page document. Give me the high level overview of it. So I would say that is most frequently how I'm using it. The other thing I'm testing out, and Anthony, you and I talked about this briefly, I'm starting to look into AI minute taking. I'm looking into a few, I've tested out, I want to test out a couple of them because I know minute taking is a challenge for some managers. And I know in certain regions and certain types of buildings, you have a third-party minute taker. I manage all the way out in Niagara. We have a lot of very small communities. Their budgets are not large. They're not paying for a minute taker. So the manager is both the chair and the minute taker of the meeting. And I know a lot of managers, it's a skill that takes time to learn. And again, I want people to learn the skill, but if they can have an aid along the way, because you want to ensure your minutes are accurate because they are a record of the corporation. So testing out a few different AI minute taking tools as well to see which one I like. So, okay, I've talked a lot. I'm going to go to Deborah.
No worries. Yeah,
I
that's a
probably
lot
have
of
more
time.
to say, but like, go to Deborah.
No,
Go to someone else.
we could talk for like 3 hours about this. Maybe I should
Yeah.
have asked CMRAO to make it a 3.0 CP credit session, but
And just on your last point, Michelle, Shane just made a comment in the chat saying Copilot is fantastic for taking minutes.
Okay,
So
haven't
his
tried that one yet.
yeah,
I will add it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his
And
experience is really good.
There was I saw another one pop up about aside from Chat GPT, which I think all of us know is the most popular AI platform. So I know my company is learning. My company is recommending Copilot. And I don't know if Deborah or Anthony, I know you're a little more techie than the other two of us, but my understanding, being a layman's tech person, is there's a little bit more security around that. And I think, again, we can get into it now, we can get into it later, but from what my company has communicated to us is that, so Copilot is a Microsoft-based platform. And so there's more security measures, whereas ChatGPT, you have to be very, very, very careful because much like anything on the internet, once you put it out there, it is out there. And so you have to be very cognizant. So before I was using Copilot, I was a frequent ChatGPT user. And if I was using it for anything condo related, I would never put an address, a name, personal contact information. I would just say, I need a letter to an owner about X, Y, and Z, or I need a notice to all owners. And then once I had the template, I would go in and put the personal information because I was just very cognizant about not sharing, the privacy around ChatGPT. And my understanding is Copilot has a little bit more structure there. And so anybody can jump in on that one.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. So as lawyers, we're of course very concerned about privacy. We deal in very sensitive information, as you do, as property managers. And so the system we have is Microsoft Copilot for the very reasons that Michelle mentioned. There's a higher confidentiality piece. Copilot actually has access to emails. I want to share a little, if I could, Anthony, a little anecdote about what happened this morning just before the seminar and how I used AI. And I've got to tell you, this revolution in AI is really something big, because if I had participated in this seminar a year ago, I would have said to Anthony, what's AI? And today I am using it daily. And I think that that is just going to increase as the systems get smarter and faster and better. So let me share with you how I actually used it. And I think there's a whole bunch of transferable pieces to property management. But I was on a panel this morning. It's a committee meeting on safety and security, and it's a joint matter. And my task was I had to update a letter to the Minister of Justice in relation to safety and securities in condos. Everybody remembers that terrible Von shooting. Actually, we're coming up to the 3rd anniversary. And on this Safety and Security Committee, we're attempting to affect change, legislative change, so that there's greater safety for property managers, among others. I'm off topic on that. That's not the point. The point is, I needed to amend a letter. And to amend that letter, there was a Google Docs. And could I find the link? I'm going through all these emails because this committee's been around for 2 years and I haven't gone into the Google Docs thing forever. Could not find the link. And of course, it's 10 minutes before I've got to get this letter submitted to the committee. So I said to Copilot, find me the email with the link for this committee. And I pressed the button, and in 1 second, boop, here it is. And I could just go directly. I mean, that is unbelievable to me. Another thing that has happened, I'm just going to give you all the recent things because I use it daily. So I have a client who has been the subject of a complaint to the CMRAO, God forbid. And one of the things I was summarizing for the CMRAO was the fact that there was a work order, and the work order, in fact, enabled this property manager to go and access a unit. And the complaint from the resident was that the manager accessed the unit and they had no business, but there was a work order.
Mm.
So I pull up this work order and I want to explain to the CMRIO why it was necessary to access the unit. And I look at the writing on this work order and I'm pretty good with, I was born in the 70s, so I'm very, very good with cursive writing. I'm very, very good. This was chicken scratch. I could not make out an A from an E, from an I to a T. It looked like hieroglyphics to me. And I thought, geez, I can't even summarize this work order. Let's see if Copilot can do it. So I took the excerpt, threw it into Copilot, and said, what the heck does this say? And in 2 seconds, up came text that said, had to access a unit because of a leaky valve and an HVAC problem. And so that to me, so I did that in a legal context. I think there are transferable skills there in a property management context. And the interesting thing is how quickly it happens. In order to prepare for today's seminar, I said, yeah, give me a few things that, might be relevant to property managers in the context of AI. And so I got hits from Copilot. But then Copilot says to me, would you like me to prepare some slides? Would you like me to prepare speaking notes? Would you like me to outline some of the biggest problems facing property managers? Folks, this is revolutionary, this AI stuff, I have to tell you. And then the last thing I'll share, because again, I think it's transferable, and I'm giving you a lot of anecdotes because I focus on how different it is today than it was just 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So, we've all had these problem residents, right, that send you these rambling emails or these rambling pieces of correspondence, and you cannot figure out, it's like a word salad. Certainly I have a lot of those. And there was one recently where we're in front of the court and this resident emails me probably daily with, to my mind, it looks like random words strung together. And fair enough, English is not her first language, but even accounting for that, it makes no sense to me. And it's pages and pages. So I have very recently, 3 days ago, highlighted the whole thing and said to Copilot, can you figure out what this person is really trying to say? And Copilot has a suggestion. Now, I want to piggyback on what Michelle said. Just because Copilot says, this is what the person is saying, or this is what the work order says, or, I've searched your emails and here's the link, you still need the human oversight to make sure that it in fact says that. You still need to say, okay, this is what you say it is. Let me have a look and see if that's accurate. Because it's not at the point now where AI can exist independently without a human check. And that's the value of property managers and lawyers and engineers and professional. I mean, you still need that level in order to ensure administrators to ensure that what's happening is copacetic. But to my mind, it's really remarkable. It sort of reminds me, this is going to sound really anachronistic, but it reminds me of the very first day I started practicing law. I went into an office and they had a computer there, which was not novel for me, but they said, okay, we've set you up with this thing, and it is called an email address. And you're going to use this to communicate. And everybody's like, ooh, look at this. To my mind, it's that revolutionary, right? To have this AI feature is going to change the way we all manage condos going forward. But those are some of the ways that I've used it recently, and you might have an appropriate application for your own work.
Yeah, I thought even, Deborah, when you were talking about the email search, which I haven't used, I'm going to try that out. I love just like testing it also, like when I hear of new things. I haven't used Copilot to find things. But what I thought of is when we're dealing with like an enforcement issue, or, when you have a legal case and lawyers are like, all right, collect all the info, right? Collect all the info for the case that we're going to love to see if I could say like, I need every email from Deborah Howden to put in this unit file because, this is going enforcement. This is gonna, I need to have all the records that I need to have. I'd be curious, like just to run some tests and see how well it is, because I've never been a fan of the Outlook search feature. If anybody is a frequent Outlook user, if you're on corporate social media, there's like always a joke about how incredibly poor. It's like, I'm looking for an email from Deborah Howden. It's like, how about this email from Anthony? And it was like, well,
Yeah, not quite.
exactly the same. It has work to do, but so again, and Anthony, I might flip to you if you're a little more. Deborah, you're even more a bit more technical than I am sometimes, but someone was asking about Copilot. There's a question in here about the Copilot account. So Copilot is Microsoft. So I'm sure probably Shibley Righton, Wilson Blanchard, we all run off of Microsoft accounts. We use Office, like Windows 11, Office 365. So we use Outlook, we use Word. And so Copilot is essentially like an app extension as part of your Office account. I'm not sure if it's something, again, we have an IT department that gives all these things to us. But it's part of like our Office account, our Microsoft Office account. So much like, you have Excel, OneNote, Word, Outlook, Copilot is like another program essentially you can get as part of the Microsoft suite. So mine is actually like an app that opens on my desktop. And I'm sure there's an extension you can probably add to your Outlook and the other apps, but I have it actually like as an application, like a window that opens separately on my desktop. So look into it if you do have an Office, like a Microsoft Office account, you're using Outlook or Word or anything like that. Look into if your package already includes Copilot or what you might need to do. And so I think that also ties to the security aspect is because it's linked to your account. It's able to pull the data that's tied to all of that, like your Outlook email, but also keeps it secure within that too.
That's
So
what they say. They say
that's
it's
what they say.
secure. Again, I try to anonymize if possible. Sometimes you can anonymize because quite frankly, sometimes and somebody's got a question in the webinar chat. Can you, thank you for the recommendation of Copilot. What specific verbiage or prompt do you input to analyze bids or summarize proposals? And if I'm looking for an analysis of a document, you actually upload the document. So there is a big confidentiality piece there, but just upload it and then you say, can you please analyze these bids? Can you please summarize these proposals? Can you please tell me about the contractual provisions? Can you please, so you upload the document.
You literally, Deborah, like on that note, like it's weird to say, talk to it like you're having a conversation, like talk to it like we're all talking right now. Like talk to it like you would talk to your administrator. Hey, here's an email from an owner. Can you please write a response letter to it? Like talk to it like it'll have a conversation with you. So you don't think too deeply about the prompt that you're writing in. Once you put the prompt in, see what it gives you back, and you'll kind of know if you're in the right track. And then, like Deborah said, it'll then go, would you like this in a more formal tone? Would you like this in a PDF or a Word document? So it guides you as well. So don't think too deeply about how to ask it the right things. Think about it like you're having a conversation with an AI person.
Yeah, they're really good at reasoning now. Like Deborah was mentioning, just 12 months ago, it was very different compared to what it is now. And I remember when AI first came out, really it was like a very strong like computer brain where it could predict the next word. And now, over the last year, reasoning has become a huge thing in AI, where it tries to really understand the problem, understand the context, infer any gaps, and give a great solution. That's the big unlock that enables us to just ask questions that are sort of unstructured, and it helps to get to that answer. And that's why there are all these use cases popping up now as well.
Yeah.
And I'll just put a bow tie on the use case thing, and I'll mention just a few use cases that I like, and then we'll move on to privacy concerns. But one thing that we did at our condo was, just like Michelle used a lot for procurement, we did as well, and we were able to compare quotes together. So upload quote from company A, upload quote from company B. Are they apples to apples? that is just such a faster way of doing it than with, a human eye. You can also even ask ChatGPT. You could put in requirements for a project. So say you're renovating a kitchen, you can say the kitchen is 20 feet by 5 feet, and I want this number of cabinets, and the cabinet doors are this wide, and et cetera, et cetera. It can give you a fairly reasonable estimate of the pricing sometimes. Of course, like Deborah and Michelle said, use human judgment as well, but that can be maybe a starting point to think about, how much should this project at my condo cost? And then on top of that, every quote comes, or every, service agreement comes with terms of service, a lot of legal language. Like, do you want to spend all your time reading that? We have some clients coming to us saying, oh, your competitor forced us into a 3-year deal. And I'm like, yeah, you should have read the terms of service, unfortunately. But now you can just literally pop a terms of service into an AI model, and it will tell you red flags potentially. So those are some cool ideas. And of course, I want to make this webinar as engaging as possible. So if anyone has amazing use cases, again, please type it into the Q&A. Please type it in the chat. And in fact, one thing that we're going to do, because this is one thing that I thought would make it more engaging, is if you type in your use case, we're going to have Nora. Nora's is part of our team. There's Nora right there. So we brought on Nora a few months ago because, as some of you might know, Doreen previously led our operations, and on Labor Day she went into labor, so she's on maternity leave right now, and Nora's taken her spot. So hi, Nora. Nora DeLipi. And did I get that last? I know I've been practicing my Albanian, so I hope I got the last name right there.
Got it. You got it right.
So we're gonna have Nora just scan through the responses in the chat and in the Q&A. And for the best use case, we'll give a $20 Tim Hortons gift card. We used to give Starbucks, but we love Canada, so Tim Hortons is the way to go there.
Elbows up.
Elbows up. There you go. So we're seeing really cool use cases come in already. So that's awesome. And we'll get back to that a bit later. So Nora, I'll leave that to you.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So I guess moving on to our next topic, legal and privacy concerns. So
Actually, Anthony, before we move on, I've been ignoring the Q&A, and I apologize for that. And
No
somebody
worries.
has properly said in the chat, can you answer the questions in the Q&A? There's 2 directed at me at the very end. Thank you, Antella and Robert. And the questions I think are related. And it's, Deborah, do you have an account with Copilot, or just the general one that has access to emails? And then Robert says, listen, as a lawyer, does Shibley Righton and have an in-house private license with Copilot, which prevents info from going on the web? And you're sort of anticipating the confidentiality issues, Robert and Intella. And the answer is, we have a private license with Copilot. Under the agreement with Copilot, they agree that any information that they have access to is confidential and will not go public. So it's not for people to pull resources from, cannot be used outside this this sort of circle of information that's internal to the firm. That's what the licensing says. So hopefully that's responsive to both of those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Copilot isn't the only solution out there, because I think some others in the chat asked, what are other AI solutions? And the big foundational models are, it's usually ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot. Those are the 3, and they all have enterprise versions, which are more secure than their public, I guess, consumer facing versions. And I guess we'll talk about that. That's a good segue into legal and privacy concerns. So so legal questions, they always come fast with new tech. So maybe I'll ask, what are the current AI legal and privacy concerns that condo corps and property managers should be aware of? And maybe we'll have Deborah, you start off with this one.
Sure. Well, the first thing that jumps to mind, I'm always concerned about privacy. Privacy is a big piece, and everybody knows about PIPEDA. For those of you who need a refresher, this is federal legislation that governs the collection, the use, and the disclosure of personal information by organizations, and it's federal, so it's across Canada. It applies to any organization that's operating commercial activities. So as soon as you heard commercial activities, you would say, well, that's not a condo, because condos don't really have commercial activities. but it applies to management companies that are acting as agents for condos. So we always act as though Pepita applies right across the board because property management companies do run a commercial activity. So what's relevant about Pepita in the context of AI? It's that it requires organizations to be accountable for personal information under their control. And that's whether it's stored in Canada or whether it's stored abroad. And what's important for people to realize, and it relates to some of the questions that we had in the Q&A, is that ChatGPT's terms of service permit it to share and store information and data input into the platform. So if you're saying, I've got this guy, Anthony Ying, and he's giving me trouble in my building and he's a convicted felon, and all of that stuff goes onto the web for somebody to pull from. Um, so you could potentially really be breaching contractual obligations or policies or privacy rights in uploading that information, which is why Michelle said you really have to anonymize when you are searching in Chat GPT. Um, that's the advice. You don't want to breach privacy obligations, and you don't want to breach policies, and you want to protect resident policy. So that's the best advice. You don't include personal or confidential information in AI prompts. The other issue is data. So data ownership, a lot of people will say in terms of AI, who owns this data that's out in the world? And I always like to say the cloud, because we use language that sometimes doesn't really bring it home. The cloud is just somebody else's computer. Okay, it's not like information is floating in the ether and it can't be pulled down. It exists on somebody's computer. So ownership of data by a third party typically remains with the condo corporation, and not the vendor storing it. And ownership, let me make this distinction. Ownership is the right to either control, access, or determine the use of the data. Custody refers to who physically holds or processes the data, and often that's a third-party vendor. So even when data is stored offsite or on the cloud, the condo corporation remains legally liable for what happens to that data. So, what would my advice be? You want any agreement with an AI provider to ensure that they follow very strict privacy and security protocols, including a breach notification and data return or deletion upon termination of the service agreement if you have a license agreement with an AI provider, because those pieces are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should clarify also that the cloud isn't a unique, I won't call it a problem, but a unique consideration for AI. Cloud is a consideration for all tech. Like most things are on the cloud now. And then maybe for those of you in attendance who are unfamiliar with what the cloud is, back in the day, if you operated a company, you would need servers that were usually on premise because you would want all your employees sharing information, storing information, and working together. And as your company got larger, you would need to scale up and get more servers. And then in sort of the late 2000s, these companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google decided, why don't we build pooled data centers with servers that different companies can use? And now this has become like one of the more popular, if not, it is the most popular method for databases essentially. When you're using Netflix, when you're using Facebook, when you're using Instagram, anything, even Gmail, your data is actually not being stored on site, it is being stored in the cloud. So it's a consideration for everything. Some could argue it is less safe to store stuff on the cloud. You could also argue, and many do, that it is more safe because now you don't need an IT technician on site that is only on site 9 to 5 and who might not actually download the latest patches right away. Whereas on the cloud, you have like military grade security and a team constantly monitoring things and updating things. So cloud is always a concern, and that you should be considerate of. And I think the training thing that Deborah mentioned earlier. Like your data can become part of the model. And usually with the enterprise solutions like ChatGPT Enterprise, Copilot, and Gemini for enterprises, there usually are clauses in the terms of service that say we're not going to use it to train our model. And I guess the thing to look out for in the terms of service, if you're a consumer user, you might see things like words or phrases or terms that say, we are going to use your prompts or queries or whatever to improve our model. Like that's always like the way of phrasing. We might use it to train our models. With that being said, at least with the big foundational models, like again, Facebook, Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, they usually do say they redact personal information. So if Deborah does ask about the felon Anthony Ng, privately into ChatGPT, Michelle Joy will be unable to just ask, what did Deborah ask about and find that out. But that's what they say. And again, not every model, I can't speak for every model, but the big ones do claim to do that. And on an enterprise level, they do claim to not train their models. But these are things that you certainly have to think about. And maybe Michelle, feel free to jump in with how you're navigating these issues on the operations side of things. Any like legal and privacy concerns, if there's anything that you think about when
Yeah.
using models?
I mean, I'm really trying to guide, again, kind of coming from the directive of our like our corporate, guide people to Copilot from ChatGPT by just educating them about the different security risks and understanding the difference between the usage. From my perspective, like, yeah, I think for me, like I already know I'm not putting a lot of, especially when I was using ChatGPT, I'm not putting any kind of personal or sensitive data in there because that was something I knew not to do. So really kind of from my position is educating people on how to use it smartly, you know, the right way. There's some questions in here also that I mean, I'm certainly not also the expert on protecting privacy. And if there's something I'm doing, I'm going to rely on someone like Deborah to consult on what it might be. Like there's a question about using AI for minute taking. And so we definitely have to be careful about where that data is stored. So I think for me, like my takeaway and what I would share with my team of managers or anybody I'm working with is just really before you dive into using it, be aware of what's happening with that data, what platform you are using and what the security risks might be. On my basic knowledge level, I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And can I just
go ahead,
jump in with that, Anthony? Because some of you may or may not know, and it might not be hugely relevant, but I think it's important in the context of this to at least mention it, that the Condominium Authority Tribunal has actually come out with a practice direction on AI. I mean, that's how prevalent this is. And it's not too old. I think it's less than a year old. They may have come up with it in, I think, December 2024. But the upshot is that there are significant consequences for the misuse of AI, including a potentially dismissal of an application or costs. And in particular, I mean, the upshot is you actually have to disclose if AI was used in submissions, because AI could give you incorrect or made up legal sources. If even as recent as this AI development is over the last, 2 years, 3.5 years, if I even had $10 for the amount of time I picked up a legal brief and I saw a fake case, Brown versus YCC 12345, I would be a rich person because it really hallucinates when it comes to not only legal cases, but sometimes legal principles. And somebody has made the comment in the Q&A chat that, a lot of residents now, when there are conflict pieces, are using, AI to say, you have infringed my rights by A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. And as
And all
Michelle
the summary, the different summary, the Human Rights Code, and this is what the Human Rights Code is, and an AODA, and this is what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Who
and you
knows?
can tell, and Michelle will confirm, you can tell because it's a whole bunch of platitudes, right? It's
Yes.
all like just generalizations with no deep diving and no real critical legal analysis. So that's not a helpful use of AI, that's for sure. But again, back to the CAT directive on AI, you have to disclose it if you're using it in the submissions. And I think that's to alert them to the fact that, wait, we better look at these cases to be sure that they're bona fide. But also the misuse of AI can lead to dismissal or cost sanctions. So I just thought I would mention that. It's online for you to check. But the takeaway is, of course, you've got to check facts, you've got to check dates, and you've got to check attachments. And not just in the context of the condominium authority, but in anything.
Yeah, I think it circles back to our early comment. It's a fantastic tool, but you should not, it's a fantastic tool. You should not 100% rely on what it tells you, and it is not there to replace your professionals. Right? Like, don't have the Chat GPT lawyer defending you in a cat case. It probably,
Yeah.
it probably can help a lot, but it's probably not going to end up well for you. So it's not there to replace the professionals, and professionals being property managers as well, right? Lawyers, lawyers, auditors, engineers, all of those professionals, we still need to be engaging them. It's not all of a sudden, oh, we don't need to pay for Deborah anymore. We'll use AI.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue into the next topic that we want to talk about really quick. I know there's only 4 minutes left, but it's this popular topic of dealing with AI generated complaint emails. I know this hour went by so fast. So one trend that we've been seeing and that I'm hearing from property managers directly is that there's an explosion of AI generated complaint emails. And that's something Deborah sort of alluded to. So maybe Michelle, can you walk us through what you're seeing day to day and how you're dealing with that?
Yeah. So I'm seeing it, and it's similar to kind of, maybe because I'm an AI user, I'm quick to find it, right? And again, if this is someone that most of these, when we're dealing with these types of complaints, and when it gets to a certain level, these are not individuals that we've never had contact with before, right? Typically, this is someone who maybe the corporation's had ongoing, issues with, or, ongoing back and forth with this person. And then all of a sudden, now we're getting different types of communication, right? And like Deborah said, typically paragraphs and paragraphs, not necessarily saying anything of substance, referencing, it's great to reference all the different laws and codes that, you're breaking and that you should be following. I think the biggest downside to the managers is with people, the ability to kind of expand on their correspondence, or articulate differently, or really make it a robust piece of communication, not having to take the time to necessarily put that together themselves. It's going to potentially bog down the property manager, right? It's going to take away from your time. And so, and as we all know, time is very valuable. That's a lot of what we're talking about right here, is how we use AI to be more efficient in handling our time on a daily basis. I don't think I've come across any, personally, this is just personal experience, I haven't come across any of falsified information yet. Not to say it's not happening, I'm sure it is, but I think we also got falsified information beforehand. But I think it's a tool that allows people to communicate more robustly and even more frequently with us, which, as we know, is going to take time away from important things we need to do. One of my takeaways, regardless of AI, and I tell my managers this, my team this all the time, even when I'm teaching, is you get these, we call them novels, right? The novel, oh my God, I got this novel email, 6 paragraphs, and it's going through. Whether you're dealing with AI or, it's a human interaction. Something that was told to me many years ago is, when you're doing a response, ignore statements and answer questions. You don't need, just because someone wrote you 6 paragraphs doesn't mean you need to respond back to all 6 paragraphs. So look for the questions, and AI might be a great use of that. What questions has this person actually asked me to address in this email? Because otherwise you're just going to get into a back and forth. So that's just kind of a key takeaway for me is when I say ignore statements, I don't mean ignore the person, but you don't need to, just because someone said, the sky is blue, you don't need to address that, right? If someone says, you know, I can't think of a question off the top of my head. Answer the questions or address the specific concerns that they've raised, but you don't need to, you know, bog yourself down by addressing every statement they've made in a communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're approaching 12 o'clock, which is when this webinar is supposed to end. So if anyone does have to leave, feel free to excuse yourself. We're going to go on for just maybe 5 to 6 minutes because this item on how to handle AI generated complaint emails is really important. So we're going to just talk for maybe 5, 6 more minutes, but if you have to excuse yourself, certainly feel free. And maybe continuing on to the topic of AI generated complaint emails, Deborah, do you have any ideas for what managers should keep in mind when dealing with these and how to handle AI complaint emails?
So I see the great mischief in AI generated emails as volume, right? Before AI, somebody had to take the time and draft the email and make it ostensibly semi-rational, or they had to go and cut and paste. Now, with one little prompt, they can say, write an email to Michelle Joy about how terrible she is and how terrible the condo is. And you press a button and you can say, generate 10 pages. And now the manager ostensibly is saddled with, on top of all the other things that you're required to do, you've got to read through these 10 pages. And they can do that several times over. And you can absolutely be bogged down in responding to these very lengthy documents that somebody has not taken really the time to sift through to make sure they're focused on main points. I've had that in my experience. Frequently, I continue to have it. I would hazard to guess to say Michelle has had that. Anthony, I don't know if you've had that. I potentially. So how do you deal with that? This might not be a legal thing as much as it is a practical thing. I don't like to see unanswered emails. I've seen too often you know, residents or owners in front of a court or an arbitrator or a tribunal saying, and I sent Michelle 10 emails and she never answered. In fact, I had that allegation yesterday, not against me, but against the poor manager. You know, they were all AI, and we know that because they're all bold with platitudes and long hyphens, but it doesn't matter. They sent the email. So one of the things that I do, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but consider it, or speak to your own corporation solicitor about this, is I prepare a standard response for these long emails, and I agree full-heartedly with Michelle when she says you don't have to answer every little bit in these emails. You don't have to respond to statements, but I have something that says something like, thank you for your email, which was received. Our position has not changed. And I cut and paste that. I have that on the side. And it's just boom, every time you get that email, you scan it to make sure there's nothing new or you're not convinced that you should change. And I respond with that statement so that they can't say, you didn't respond. But I'll tell you something, human nature being what it is, they don't tend to continue very long. You might get another 5, 6, 7, but come day 4, when they've received another email that's saying, have not changed our views, it sort of helps to take the wind out of the sails. So
yeah, I
again,
wholeheartedly agree, Deborah. Yeah. And I think more managers need to feel empowered to do that. And that's where I come from, like ignore statements, answer questions. We want to serve. A lot of us want to serve, right? We're in this industry. It's customer service. We're here to serve the people of our communities. And so we want to give them, and then, we get drained by this type of correspondence. And then sometimes it leads to, I just can't anymore. And they shut it away. Right. And so I want managers to know, and you're a condo lawyer as well. So you're kind of given that legal perspective. It's okay. Like I will give a warning. Listen, we have nothing further to add. Additional emails on this matter will have like no further comment. And then just the received and accepted, received and accepted. That is a perfectly acceptable way to handle communication. Like, I'm hoping, no one on your leadership team would get you in trouble for something like that. So, we call it the communication diet. This is how we're going to communicate with you moving forward. You do not have to give your all to these types of correspondence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. Anthony, I think you might be on mute.
I was muted.
Yeah.
It is approaching 12:05, and I lost my voice because we've been talking for so long. But one thing I did mention earlier is I asked attendees to share their favorite use case, and we'd give a $20 gift card to the favorite use case. So Nora, if you are still there, what was your favorite use case? And we'll award that manager with a $20 gift card.
Hello.
Nora?
Yes, I'm still here. Okay, there were a lot of really good cases, and it was really tough to pick one. However, I picked, let's see, the one from Sam Rollins, and the case was our company has so far speaking property inspection notes into AI and having it create work orders, grouping similar works together.
Wow.
And I picked that one because it looks like it's something AI can do right now, and it helps make life a little bit easier and just make that operational headaches go down just by a little bit now.
Absolutely. So Sam will send you a $20 gift card. Thanks for the idea. And this has been a fantastic conversation. So thank you so much, Michelle and Deborah, for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.
And for everyone watching, we really hope that this session helped you better understand the real opportunities and also the real concerns around AI in condo management. Everyone that attended, you'll receive an email this afternoon with a certificate of completion so that you can upload to CMRAO. And thanks again to everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.